now we're talking about how I keep my motivation high. It's because I'm looking for jobs aside the airline business where I can build up flying skills. For me personally, this is the most important thing in my life. So I'm fulfilled in my flying career. I know everyone is different, and some people, they would be like, hey, you guys are crazy, you're flying a 747 and still you're looking for something cooler. But that's how I am.
Bernie, so lovely to meet you here on Zoom.
Thanks for having me, Petra. It's a pleasure.
I discovered you on Instagram, and you have the most amazing pictures. And of course, you have a job with the best view. The office with the best
That's true.
view.
Yeah. That's true. It's always sunny up there. Yeah.
Yeah. But Bernie, I'm so intrigued about people who have an interest in aviation, who work in aviation, and I would love to hear your story. So if we could start by the question that I always ask: where did the love for aviation start?
Yeah, I was asking this question myself a lot. I think my father's best friend, he had a big influence on my career. He was a fighter pilot for the US Air Force. And my father and him, they met each other in the 70s. And my father's best friend, his name is Ken. He was flying F-4 Phantoms in Vietnam War and had quite a interesting history. And every time I met him, which was almost every year, he told me stories and showed me airplanes. We went to air bases together in the United States. He let me fly simulators when I was a teenager, stuff like that. So this was probably my biggest influence getting into aviation. Then another point is I grew up quite close to Frankfurt Airport, which is one of the biggest airports in Europe. So every day when we had easterly winds, I saw planes flying over my house, big planes. So I think this was also something which kept me interested. And then when I was 13 years old, I asked my dad to drive me to the airfield at my hometown, Mainz, which is around 30 kilometers away from Frankfurt International Airport. So he drove me there, and I got hooked up flying gliders at the age of 13. Yeah.
Really?
And that's
so
how
young.
It all started.
But that's very young, 13 to fly gliders.
Yeah, you can start flying at the age of 13. And then I think the license I was able to get when I was 17 years old. I'm actually not sure how it is nowadays, but back then I wasn't allowed to drive a car in Germany, but I was allowed to fly gliders. So when I was 17, I asked my parents to drive me to the airfield, and then I could take them with me up in the air. It's doesn't make sense, but it's the law.
But this I've heard before also, that you can actually fly before you have your driver's license.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But now, flying the gliders, there must be something with height, do you have to you don't have to be afraid of heights because you are sort of open. It's not as if you're confined in an aircraft.
Well, gliders are still pretty closed. You have this bubble canopy. You have this bubble canopy you're surrounded by. So it's kind of the same like in light airplanes. Yeah. The biggest difference, of course, is you don't have an engine. So you have to plan ahead a lot more because there's no thrust that can bring you out of dangerous situations. So you always have to know where is a place where I can land. It doesn't have to be an airfield all the time. You can also land on open fields, which is quite common when you don't make it home to airfields. But it's a lot more pre-planning, and I think it's a very, very, very good start into aviation. Yeah. And at the age of 13, there's no other possibility to be a pilot. It's only possible to fly gliders at that age.
So do you think that it's something like doing that now, that it also helped when you were learning to fly, when you were actually learning to fly a plane?
100%, yeah. It's all the good pilots that I know, like very good aerobatic pilots or formation pilots, like 99% of them, they started flying gliders when they were young. It's probably the best foundation in flying. And I think to become good in something, it always helps to start when you're young and when you're open-minded. And as I said, at the age of 13, there's only one way to get into aviation. It's flying gliders, or maybe also flying model planes. A lot of people are starting to do that as well. And this also helps being a pilot later on.
Yeah, because probably with the gliders, you're also very aware of the wind.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, you're very affected by nature a lot more than flying engine-driven planes. It's wind and thermals and the whole meteorological issue is a bigger in flying gliders than in other kinds of flying. Yeah.
Wow. Now, how did your path go? Because if when you finished school, did you immediately then apply for a flying school? Or how does it work?
So I had this glider license. I also did my motor gliders license back at my home airfield as well. So this was the second step and license I've gone through. And then when I was finished with school, I applied for Lufthansa flight training, which is, I think most of the people around know Lufthansa, one of the biggest airlines in Europe. And they have this pilot flight academy. And I was very lucky. They accepted me. So I went through their training when I was 19 years old. I started it. And it took place in Bremen, which is northern Germany, and also in Arizona in the United States. And it took me a little more than 2 years. And then I had this professional pilot's license, the commercial pilot's license.
But when you apply for a flight school, for example, what do you need to, or how do they sort of judge you to be able to do the course? Because now I assume not everybody can do it.
No, unfortunately, not everybody can do it. It's only very few people who get through the assessment. I think when I went through it, it was only 3 or 5% who were accepted after everything took place. So all in all, it was 4 days of assessment, which, they check your math ability, your English ability, your physics ability. They check your psychological abilities, how you work together with other people in a group. And then, of course, you have to get a medical checkup at the end. I think it's a pretty standard assessment for an ab initio training for flight school. Yeah.
And what is the reason that you had to go to Arizona as well?
That was the standard process of Lufthansa flight training. They sent every student pilot to Arizona, and they still do. It just has a lot of advantages going there. I think flying is cheaper. There's more space. You don't have to worry about airspace a lot, as much as you have to worry about in Europe. And then also the weather. When we were in Arizona, there's 350 days of good weather. I don't have to tell you how it is in Central Europe. It wouldn't be possible to do a training like that.
Yeah, that's
maybe in South Africa.
Yeah. But that's but also 2 years, then you have your commercial license, but then you have to start working or start building up hours. So from there on, what do you immediately start flying commercial planes then?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
That's how some airlines do it. Lufthansa is one of them. When you get accepted as a student pilot, they pretty much guarantee you to fly an airline jet afterwards. Yeah.
Okay.
I know things have changed the last years and it's become more and more difficult, but I was still lucky. I mean, I started going through the training in 2006, which is quite a while ago already. And yeah, I started flying on the Airbus A320 fleet afterwards, flying short and middle range out of Munich first and then later on from Frankfurt. Yeah.
That must be amazing at that you can then fly, because so many pilots sometimes I speak to tell me that they, it's not always easy to get into an airline, to be an airline pilot, and that you have to go through all these hours of flying to build up experience and so on to get to that point.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I still think if you're passionate about it and if you're patient, if you maybe have a plan B you can do while you're waiting for a good job, I think it's still a good chance to get into a good position as a pilot. Yeah.
But in your career, so for you, like you say, you have to have the patience. Is it sometimes, do you stay motivated? Is there some point in your career that you find that it's difficult, because it's not like a normal career where you just there's a hierarchy in your job, so you have to be patient, you have to fly and go the route that you have to go. So do you stay motivated in a sense?
I'm staying motivated because I'm looking for ways to get motivated.
Okay.
Flying for a big airline, it's not like you're becoming a captain after 3 years and you're the boss. Everything takes a long while, and it can be frustrating for sure. So in my personal career, I was flying the Airbus short and middle range for almost 10 years, I think 9 years and something. And then I applied to fly the Boeing 747, which was always my childhood dream, the jumbo jet. And now I'm flying this plane for almost 5 years already. And still, it's a long way becoming a captain for me. I'm still a first officer. And I think it at least takes another 5, maybe 8 years until I become a captain. So you have to be patient. And also, when I was a teenager and I had this dream of becoming an airline pilot, I had this imagination of how it would be to fly big planes and all this flying skills you need to build up. And now the reality really looks different. Yeah, flying a long-range plane around the world, you don't need that much of flying skills. And now we're talking about how I keep my motivation high. It's because I'm looking for jobs aside the airline business where I can build up flying skills. For me personally, this is the most important thing in my life. So I'm fulfilled in my flying career. I know everyone is different, and some people, they would be like, hey, you guys are crazy, you're flying a 747 and still you're looking for something cooler. But that's how I am. So I'm flying aerobatics for more than 10 years now. I'm in the national team flying in the highest aerobatic class. This is something I need personally to be fulfilled in flying career. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw on your Instagram, amazing what you do, and it's. I mean, I can't get my head around, because you have to be so fearless to do that.
I wouldn't say fearless.
Oh, really?
I would say you need to be focused, and you need to have a plan. it doesn't work without having a plan, without doing proper briefings, especially when you're flying together with other planes. It's crucial that you take it up to a professional level. Otherwise, it's going to be dangerous. Yeah.
But the two different things. I mean, the one is airline pilot. So there you have passengers, and you have to think about that as well. You have a big responsibility. But also with the aerobatics, do you think the two different ways of flying sort of help each other, or is there some way you can see that the one thing brings something to the other?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I went through this professional education, through this training, which sets your mind to a certain standard of airline flying. And it's a professional way of thinking, how to prepare for a flight, how to think ahead when you're in a plane. It definitely helps a lot flying smaller planes as well.
Really?
And then on the other hand side, flying aerobatic planes a lot and on a high class, that on the other hand helps me flying the 747 as well too, because you don't get a lot of flying training in a 747. For example, this year I only had, I think, 5 landings on a 747, because on a long range flight we're mostly 3 pilots. So when I fly to Singapore and back to Frankfurt, I sometimes go home and I didn't even get a landing because the other 2 pilots had the landing this time. Yeah. So at the end of the month, I'm happy when I get 2 or 3 landings in a 747. That's not a lot of experience you build up on this plane. So I have all this flying beside that. It helps a lot building up flying skills and keeping them high.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that you don't think about that, but yeah, that's true that you, and of course for the takeoff and landings are probably the times in an aircraft where you are the most focused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beside takeoff and landing, the autopilot does most of the job. Of course, we have to do all the radio communication and get clearances, and there's always something happening on a flight, whether it's a medical issue or a technical issue or a delay you have to catch up, or whether you have to circumnavigate. There's always something, so it doesn't get boring. But the flying part is done by the autopilot.
But now, with the 2 different size aircraft, or the different size aircraft, do you have to sort of orientate yourself again when you're in a little plane, or is it the same type of and you know what I mean? It's the same type of energy that you use inside.
Yeah, it's a completely different perspective for sure. In a 747, I sit 12 meters higher than in the other plane.
Yeah.
So sometimes after a longer break, which is usually during winter time, when weather just doesn't permit flying small planes because it's snowing or raining every day. So sometimes I have not flown a small plane for 6 or 8 weeks. Then of course it needs some time until I feel 100% comfortable again. But during summertime, I fly both planes more than enough, so I don't feel uncomfortable.
Oh, okay. But now, do you fly historical planes as well?
Yeah, I was very privileged. I was able to fly the Junkers 52, which was owned by Lufthansa. It's a plane built in the 30s, and it had 3 radial engines on it. So we did scenic flights with that plane, which was an awesome experience. And this was my first historic plane that I really got in touch with. Yeah. And after that, I flew some other historical planes, and I'm interested in doing more in that kind of flying. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's fascinating what beautiful planes were built nearly 100 years ago. It's crazy.
Well, I don't know much about planes, but I'm very interested in the Spitfire as well because of the design of the Spitfire. You know, I'm fascinated about how it was designed, and everybody who speaks about the Spitfire and tells how easy it is to fly. And I'm also, I think it's so important that these old aircraft are still flown, and that that people still see it because it's part of the history, but it's also part of the history of aviation.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of history, and also it is good advertisement. So in Germany, everyone knows this old Junkers 52, which is operated by Lufthansa, and this is good advertisement for the airline itself.
Yeah. But now, what are the wishes for you for the future? I mean, you're doing amazing work. I mean, and very a variety of things that you're doing. But apart from becoming an airline captain, what other wishes do you have?
I have a small family at home, a little girl. I just wish her that she stays healthy, and we're always having a good time together. And flying wise, I would love to fly more historical planes, but a door will open for me. I'm pretty sure. I don't know where it will be, but I just keep on what I'm doing, what I love to do, and then other doors will open, I'm sure.
Well, your daughter does she have an interest in flying already? Can you see something?
She's 40 months old. She doesn't speak yet.
Oh, so not not yet.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so sweet. Yeah, but maybe it will be fascinating to see if if she sees what you do and if she also has an interest in that.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how she reacts on all the planes and all the noise.
Yeah. Has she been in a plane with you already?
Yeah, many times. Yeah. First time I took her up in the air, she was 5 months old.
Yeah. Oh, that is so sweet. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Oh, but I can just imagine when she's older, she's going to love it so much.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't want to push her into something. She needs to do what she likes. But if it's flying, I would support her for sure.
Well, Bernie, what advice do you have for a young guy, a young boy coming up, wanting to be a pilot?
If you're passionate about it, don't be afraid going this way. Nowadays, I think you have to be more flexible than 20 years ago in means of where your first job will be, for example. So just be realistic. Nowadays, you can't apply as a young boy and say, hey, I want to be a pilot in Frankfurt because this is my hometown. This is not the way it works today, unfortunately. So, but if you're like, okay, I just want to fly and want to have a good job and build a family, and I don't care whether the first job is in Frankfurt or in Dubai or in Hong Kong, I think you still have very good chance to have a beautiful career in flying. And also just be realistic about your imagination. That's what I said a few minutes ago. Yeah. The flying part, it's only just a very, very little part in those modern jet airliners. And if you're happy doing this, go for it. If you really want to fly planes, maybe think about doing a different job which makes good money and fly small planes only, because this is probably more fun for you in this case.
Yeah, this is good advice, because I think during this whole pandemic, people also realized, how these jobs are so, it's not necessarily that you can fly then. I mean, you guys were also grounded for many, many, many months. So,
yeah. no one would have ever believed, but I was grounded for 14 months. Yeah.
Really. Mm. And that unsurety of what's going to happen, and if the companies will have the jobs, I think that was also very stressful.
Yeah. I mean, many jobs were affected by this, whether it's restaurants or hotels or the whole airline or cruise ship industry. So we were not the only ones, and no one would have ever imagined. But let's stay positive. I hope this was the last pandemic in my working life.
Yeah. But Bernie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for telling your story. It was really wonderful, and it's amazing to see what your pictures on Instagram. It's really it looks very adventurous and amazing.
Thank you, Petra. It was a pleasure.
And whenever you're in Vienna, whenever you fly to Vienna, which you let me know.
I'll let you know and you fly with me.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Okay, Bernie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Petra.
Thank you. Bye.